Namaste students. So we have already learned about the design of transformer in the module number 3. Now continuing with the electrical machine design subject, coming to the module number 4, that is design of three-phase induction motor. So the construction and working of three-phase induction motor in detail you have studied in your first year and second year courses. Correct. So induction motor will be normally it is used in the industries. So in this particular module we will be learning about the design aspects of three-phase induction motor. If you see the construction of three-phase induction motor, or if you recall the construction of three-phase induction motor, so it consists of a stator and a rotor. So this is a terminal box where three-phase AC supply is connected to the input terminal of or the stator terminal of induction motor. So this is the drive and shield. So it is a shaft key which is connected to the mechanical load. This is motor shaft, and this is bearings, and this is the stator part which is the stationary, and here it's a mounting hole where the induction motor can be mounted on the floor, and this is an enclosure which is outermost part to protect the induction motor, and this is a base and rotor end rings. This is a rotor end rings and fan cover and cooling fan which is used to cool the induction motor, non-drive end shield, stator winding which is present in the stator, and this is a rotor. There are two types of rotor, phase wound rotor and squirrel cage rotor. Another name for phase wound rotor is slip ring rotor. Correct. Rotor, and this is a eye bolt where to lift the induction motor, and this is rotor bars where the rotor conductors are placed. So this is a simpler construction of a three-phase induction motor, and this is a part of three-phase induction motor where you can see lifting eye to lift the induction motor, and name plate, stator coil where stator winding is there, and this is a rotor part. So here it is a squirrel cage rotor, and bearing seal it is there, and ball bearing is there, wiring box is there where you are connecting the single three-phase AC supply, and cooling fans and fan cover. So it's a just an showing the parts of three-phase induction motor. The construction wise, the two major parts of three-phase induction motor are stator and rotor. Stator is a stationary part and rotor is a rotating part. The stator consists of core and winding, stator winding. The stator core is made of laminated sheet steel of thickness 0.5 millimeter. Stator core is having the laminations which is having a thickness of 0.5 millimeter. The stator core internal diameter and the length are the main dimensions of induction motor. Stator core internal diameter capital D, that is the diameter of stator core, and the core length, that is capital L, are the main dimensions of induction motor. Correct. The two different types of rotor of three-phase induction motor are squirrel cage rotor and slip ring rotor. Squirrel cage and slip ring rotor are two types of rotors in a three-phase induction motor. So now coming to the squirrel cage rotor, we can say, so this is a typical figure of an squirrel cage rotor of an induction motor. So this is an aluminum bar or copper bar where the conductors are placed inside this aluminum or copper bar. So this is an end ring where all the conductors are short circuited to each other. So this is balance ring, and this is a shaft, and this is a silicon steel core. So typical squirrel cage rotor. So this is also a side view of rotor you can say. So here rotor bars are slightly skewed. So to eliminate the noise and eliminate the harmonics, the rotors are skewed. Skewed means it is not directly connected or horizontally connected. So these rotors are not directly horizontal. So some with some angle they are placed. Correct. So it is also a figure. It's aluminium ring shaft is there. Correct. So it's a typical figure of a squirrel cage rotor. So in squirrel cage construction, the rotor consists of core, copper or aluminum bars and end rings. So in the squirrel cage construction, the rotor will be having core, copper is there and aluminum bars also there. The end rings are provided to short circuit the rotor bars at the both ends. So the conductors which are placed in the uh, rotor conductors, correct, placed in the rotor slots, they are short circuited at the both ends, so that is called as a end rings. Correct, it is short circuited at both ends. The rotor core is made of laminated sheet steel with a thickness of 0.5 millimeter. The aluminum or copper bars and end rings are cast directly over the rotor core. So they are directly placed inside the, or they are directly cast into the rotor core. When copper is used, the rotor bars are inserted on the slots from the end of the rotor and the end rings are joined to them by bracing. When copper is used, the rotor bars are inserted on the slots. Rotor bars are inserted on the slots from the end of the rotor and the end rings are joined to them by with the help of bracing. Bracing is nothing but it's a joining of copper conductors which is placed inside the rotor conductor slots. So this is an phase wound or slip ring rotor. So you can see here wound rotor which is showing here. So it is a slots where the conductors are placed, and this is a slip rings which are mounted on the rotor, and this is a shaft. So the rotor winding are star connected. If you can see star connected rotor winding RYB, and it is a rotor frame. So they are placed in the slip rings, 3 slip rings with respect to 3 phase RYB. R phase is connected to the R phase slip ring and Y phase is connected to the Y phase slip ring and B phase is connected to the B phase slip rings. Correct. So this is a shaft where the rotors are mounted. So RYB here it is brush is there. So 3 brushes are there and external resistance which are connected, external star connected rheostat which is connected to the slip rings through the shaft. Correct. Or through the brush you can say, to control the speed. So these external star connected rheostat are used to control the speed of a rotor. Correct. Where the speed control applications we can use the star connected rheostats. The wound rotor consists of a core, winding, slip rings and brushes. Correct. And the rotor core is made of laminations and it carries a 3-phase winding. 3-phase windings are mounted on that one. The wound rotor consists of a core, winding, slip rings and brushes. One end of each phase are connected to form a star point. So the rotor winding are connected together, of each phase is connected together to form a star point. The other end of each phase are connected to 3 slip rings. So other end of each phase is connected to 3 slip rings which is mounted on the shaft. The slip rings are mounted on the rotor shaft and they are insulated from the rotor and from the each other. So the slip rings are mounted on the rotor shaft. So they are mounted on the rotor shaft and they are insulated from the rotor. So they are separated. So there is no conducting part between the rotor and the slip rings. Correct. So they are insulated from each other and from the rotor and the conductor. So the carbon brushes are mounted over the slip rings which offer the facility of connecting the external resistance to the rotor winding. So carbon brushes are mounted over the slip rings, so that which connects the external resistance to the rotor winding. So these carbon brushes are helping the external resistance to connecting the rotor winding. So this is just a glimpse of what you have learned in the previous semester about the construction and of a 3-phase induction motor. Now coming to the actual syllabus of a 3-phase induction motor. So we have to derive the output equation of a 3-phase induction motor and related problems. numerical problems, and other parameters we have to find which is related to the design aspects. So before going for that one, so we have to learn the symbols which are used in the future for deriving the uh, related design parameters of three-phase induction motor. So what are the symbols that we have to see? The various symbols used in the sections are as follows. The capital D, that is armature diameter or stator bore diameter. Stator bore diameter or armature diameter, which is represented in meter. So that is capital D. So capital L is stator core length, which is represented in meter. Correct. Stator core length, capital L. And N is the speed in RPS, rotation per second, that is small n. And Ns is the synchronous speed in RPS, rotation per second. Ns is synchronous speed and N is the speed in RPS. So P is the number of poles, small p is number of poles which are present in induction motor, and A is the number of parallel paths or number of circuits which is connecting in the induction motor. So tau is the pole pitch, that is that it is nothing but total number of conductors under one pole. Total number of conductors under one pole, which is given by tau, that is a pole pitch, which is represented in meter, and Z is the total number of armature or stator conductors. Total number of armature or stator conductor is given by Z, and tau is the pole pitch, that is total number of conductors per pole. Correct. So next, T phase is the turns per phase, total number of turns per phase, and IZ is the current in each conductor in amps. Current in each conductor in amps, and kW is the winding factor, and Ia is the armature current in amps, and IPH is a current per phase. The per phase current is given by IPH, and E is back EMF, which is represented in volts, and E phase is induced EMF per phase, in voltage, and P is the rating of the machine in kilowatt. Normally in induction motor, which is rating is mentioned in terms of kilowatt. In a transformer, it is mentioned in terms of kVA. Correct. So P is nothing but capital P is a rating of machine in kilowatt, and small p is nothing but the number of poles that we have to understand. PA is the power developed by the armature in kilowatt. So PA is it is a mechanical power, correct, which is developed in the armature. So that is PA in terms of kilowatt, and Q is kVA rating of the machine, similar to that of transformer. So main dimensions, what are the main dimensions which are present in the induction motor? The armature diameter or stator bore, that is capital D, and armature stator core length, that is L, are the main dimensions of rotating machine. Armature diameter or stator bore, capital D is the armature diameter, and armature core length, capital L, is the main dimensions of a rotating machine. So if you see the front view of induction motor, so this is capital D, which is called as a stator bore diameter or armature diameter. So the outermost part is, and the this inner part, which is consists of a stator. Correct. So from this inner part to this end, so that is a capital D, which is called as a rotor. Correct. So from this to here, it is called as a rotor, inner circle, and this outer circle is consists of a stator. Correct. So it is called as a stator bore diameter, that is capital D. So if you see the side view of induction motor, so this is L, that is core length, you can say core length, and this is a capital D, that is a diameter. So this is L, that is a core length, you can say. So it is a typical dimensions, or you can say it is a main dimensions of three-phase induction motor. So now, before actually going for the actual derivation of output equation of induction motor, we have to learn about the total magnetic loading. So it is nothing but the total flux around the armature periphery at the air gap is called as a magnetic loading. So total amount of flux which is present in the armature at the air gap. In the air gap, what is the total flux which is present? So that is called as a magnetic loading, total magnetic loading. So total electrical loading is the total number of ampere conductors around the armature periphery. So what is the total number of ampere conductors around the armature periphery is called as the total electrical loading. What is the total number of ampere conductors which are present in the armature? So that is called as a total electrical loading. So total electrical loading is given by IZ into Z. IZ is the current in flowing through each conductor, and Z is the total number of conductor, correct. So that is called as a total electrical loading. Specific magnetic loading, the average flux density over the air gap of a machine is known as a specific magnetic loading. So average flux density over the air gap. Flux density is nothing but flux per unit area. So what is the amount of flux which is present that one particular unit of area in the air gap is called as a specific magnetic loading. So the definition of specific magnetic loading, BAV equal to total flux around the air gap, total flux around the air gap to the area of flux path at the air gap. So it is nothing but ratio of total flux around the air gap to the area of flux path at the air gap. So total flux around the air gap is nothing but number of poles into flux P phi, and area of flux path at the air gap is pi into D into L. D and L are the main dimensions of induction motor. So according to the definition, pole pitch, it is nothing but pi D by P. So the pole pitch is given by pi D by P. So pi D by P, here it is P divided by pi D. So we can say that it is 1 by tau. 1 by tau, that is 1 by pole pitch. So it is given by phi divided by pole pitch into length, correct. So that is BAV, that is specific magnetic loading. So specific electrical loading, which is given by the number of armature ampere conductors per meter of armature periphery at the air gap, is called as a specific electrical loading. So what is the number of ampere conductors per meter of armature? So the amount of ampere conductors in the armature, the number of ampere conductors in the armature per meter distance of armature periphery at the air gap. So that is called as a specific electrical loading. So specific electrical loading is given by AC is equal to, it's a ratio of total armature ampere conductors to the armature periphery at the air gap. It is nothing but ratio of total armature ampere conductors to the armature periphery at the air gap. So it is given by IZ into Z divided by pi into D. IZ into Z divided by pi into D. So that is the mathematical expression for specific electrical loading, that is AC. So now coming to the very important derivation, which is similar to that of transformer. So that we have to derive the expression for, or the output equation of three-phase induction motor. Three-phase induction motor. So this is a very important derivation similar to that of transformer. So consider an M phase machine. So it's, if we are considering the three-phase induction motor, so we can say that M is equal to 3. So it's a general value. So consider an M phase machine having one circuit, considering it is having one circuit or one parallel path per phase kVA rating of the machine. So it is having one circuit or one parallel path per phase kVA rating of the machine. So consider an M phase machine. M phase means it is a number of phases. So it is a three-phase machine. So there will be three-phase machine having one parallel path per phase kVA rating of the machine. So Q is the number of phase into output voltage per phase into current per phase into 10 to the power minus 3. So normally Q is represented in kVA. So it is number of phases. Normally it is a three phase. So number of phase into output voltage per phase, voltage into current per phase, voltage into current into 10 to the power minus 3. So normally it is represented in kVA, correct. Q will be in kVA. So we have to multiply by 10 to the power minus 3. So which is equal to number of phase is M into output voltage per phase is EPH, and current per phase is IPH into 10 to the power minus 3. So the terminal voltage of each phases may be taken equal to the induced EMF per phase. So whatever the terminal voltage of each phase, it can be considered as equal to the induced EMF per phase. So we have learned that induced EMF per phase of induction motor, E phase is equal to 4.44 F into phi into T phase into kW, where F is the supply frequency and phi is the total flux, and T phase is the number of turns per phase into winding factor, that is kW. So this is the induced EMF E phase, which we have learned in the lower semester. So then you can substitute this value. So Q is equal to number of phase is M, correct, into output voltage per phase is E phase. E phase, you can substitute this value 4.44 F phi T phase into kW, into I phase is I phase PH into 10 to the power minus 3, correct. So that is the value of Q. Q is equal to M into 4.44 F into phi T phase kW I phase into 10 to the power minus 3. but F is equal to ns into P by 2. So we have learned in the induction motor that synchronous speed ns, capital Ns is nothing but it is a synchronous speed in RPM. RPM is 120 F by P, correct? 120 F, that is supply frequency and number of poles. So now we have already decided that ns is nothing but RPS, that is synchronous speed in RPS, rotation per second. So based on that equation, we can write it as frequency is equal to P into number of poles into ns divided by 2. That is 120 F by P, that is RPM. So here it is ns is RPS. So it is P into ns divided by 2. Therefore Q will become M into, so substituting the value of F here, so Q is equal to M into 4.44. so what is F? F is P into ns by 2 into phi into T phase into kW into I phase into 10 to the power minus 3, 10 to the power minus 3. So which is equal to 1.11 kW. P phi you can group it to one side, you can group it. So here 2. So in the expression, if you see here 4.44 divided by 2, so that will becomes 2.22, correct? So that 2.22 you can write it as 1.11 into 2 here, 1.11 into 2 kW into P phi into M into I phase T phase ns into 10 to the power minus 3. Now the current in each conductor is Iz is equal to I phase, because we have assumed that one circuit per phase or one parallel path per phase, correct? So we can consider that Iz is equal to I phase. Current in each conductor Iz is equal to I phase. So total number of armature conductors Z is equal to number of phases into 2 into turns per phase. So total number of armature conductors Z, you can write it as number of phases. Here it is 3 phase into 2 into turns per phase. So 2 into M into T phase. So here if it is 3 phase, so it is 6 into T phase. Now total number of armature conductors Z is equal to 6 into T phase, but it is generally it is used, so 2 into M into T phase. So total electrical loading is Iz into Z. In the expression, in the derivation, in the derivation we have seen that it is total electrical loading Iz into Z, which is equal to 2M into I phase into T phase, 2M into I phase into T phase, correct? So that is Iz is equal to I phase, correct? So 2M into I phase into T phase. So that is the total electrical loading. Hence Q becomes 1.11 kW P5 into P5 into Iz into Z, Iz into Z, that is 2M I phase T phase. So total this one 2M I phase T phase, here 2M I phase T phase, we can replace that one with the Iz into Z and ns into 10 to the power minus 3. So which is equal to 1.11 kW, and P5 is the total magnetic loading. If you see the definition of total magnetic loading, that is P5. P5 is the total magnetic loading, and Iz into Z is total electrical loading. Iz into Z is total electrical loading, and ns is synchronous speed into 10 to the power minus 3. So that is the value of Q. So but P5 is equal to pi dl into BAV. If you see the definition of specific magnetic loading, so what is the specific magnetic loading? BAV equal to P5 divided by pi dl. So from that P5 is equal to pi dl into BAV, and specific electrical loading, from the definition of specific electrical loading, Iz into Z is equal to pi d into AC. Specific electrical loading AC is equal to Iz into Z divided by pi d. So you can say that Iz into Z is equal to pi d into AC, correct? So substituting these values, we can we have Q is equal to 1.11 kW. What is P5? P5 is nothing but pi dl into BAV, pi dl into BAV, and Iz into Z is nothing but pi d into AC, and ns into 10 to the power minus 3. So which is equal to 1.11 pi square. So here 1 pi is there, here 1 pi is there, so pi square BAV into AC into kW into 10 to the power minus 3 into d square into L into ns. So d square into L into ns, you are separating. So you will be getting 1.11 pi square BAV AC kW into 10 to the power minus 3 d square into L into ns. So you will be getting 11 into BAV pi square into 1.11. If you multiply, pi is 3.14. If you substitute 3.14 in square, so around nearly equal to 10 you will be getting. Yeah, so 10 you will be getting. So if you multiply with that one, so you will be getting 11. 11 into BAV, 1.11 into almost 10 pi square, so you will be getting nearly equal to 11 value. So 11 into BAV into AC into kW into 10 to the power minus 3 into d square into L into ns. So which is equal to, substitute this one instead of C naught. So 11 into BAV AC into kW into 10 to the power minus 3, together you can substitute as a C naught. C naught into d square into L into ns, where C naught is 11 BAV AC kW into 10 to the power minus 3. C naught into d square into L into ns, where d is the stator bore diameter and L is the core length and ns is the synchronous speed in rps. So q will become expression. So C naught d square lns is the output equation of three-phase induction motor. So you can say that Q is equal to C naught into d square L into ns. So this is the output equation of three-phase induction motor. So where C naught is nothing but 11 into BAV into AC into kW into 10 to the power minus 3. So that is the C naught, and d square L into ns. So you can say that output equation of induction motor is a parameter of stator bore diameter and core length, correct, and the synchronous speed, and specific magnetic loading, specific electrical loading, and winding factor. So that is the derivation of three-phase induction motor, output equation of three-phase induction motor. Next, we have to learn about the choice of average flux density in the air gap. What is the value of flux densities to be chosen in the air gap? So that we have to see what is the choice of average flux density in the air gap. So first one is the power factor. What is the effect of power factor if you choose the average flux density in the air gap? The value of flux density in the air gap should be small, as otherwise the machine will draw large magnetizing current. If you choose a large value of flux density in the air gap, flux per unit area, so there will be a high drawing of magnetizing current, which will give the poor power factor. To improve the power factor, we need to have the flux density, value of flux density in the air gap should be small. So for better power factor, good power factor, value of flux density in the air gap should be small. Otherwise, it will draw the high magnetizing current. Induction motor will draw the high magnetizing current that will leads to the poor power factor. So second point is the iron loss. Iron loss, an increased value of gap density. Flux density is increasing, means the amount of flux will be more in the air gap, correct. So the flux density is increasing. It is in turn increasing of amount of flux which is present in the air gap, because the area of air gap is once it is fixed during the construction, it is fixed. It will not be changed. So an increased value of gap density, flux density, results in increased iron loss. So if there is an increase in the flux, there will be an increase in iron loss, and there will be naturally decrease in the efficiency in induction motor. So third point is overload capacity. What is meant by overload capacity? The value of air gap flux density determines the overload capacity. A high value of VAV means that the flux per pole is large. If you consider the flux per pole, if flux density is higher, then the flux per pole is large. Thus, for the same voltage, the winding requires less turns per phase, and if the number of turns is less, the leakage reactance becomes small. So if the value of flux per pole is large, then for the same voltage, the winding requires less turns per phase. The less number of copper turns per phase is decreases, and if the number of turns is less, the leakage reactance also becomes less. With the small leakage reactance, the circle diagram of machine has a large diameter. So the performance of induction motor will be drawn through the circle diagram that we have learned in the induction motor and transformer chapter in the previous semesters. So if you draw the performance characteristics in the circle diagram with the small leakage reactance, the circle diagram of the machine has a large diameter. So the diameter of the circle diagram will be higher, which means that maximum output is large, which is having large overload capacity. So the diameter of the circle diagram, if it is increased, that is more, means the motor is having maximum output, it is giving the maximum output, and which has large overload capacity. So these 3 points, For 50 Hertz machine, value of BAV lies between 0.3 to 0.6 Weber per meter square. So for 50 Hertz machine, the value of flux density will be lies between 0.3 and 0.6. So these three parameters are to be considered for the selection of average flux density in the air gap. One is a power factor. So what is a power factor? The value of flux density in the air gap should be very small. If it is small, then it will not draw the large magnetizing current. If it is drawing large magnetizing current, then the power factor will be poor. So second point is iron loss. An increased value of gap density results in increased iron loss. So the flux density is higher means there is an increase in the iron loss, and decrease the efficiency. Efficiency will be decreased. Overload capacity. So the value of flux density will be deciding factor for the overload capacity of the induction motor. So if you choose high value of a BAV, that is flux density means flux per pole is large. Therefore, same voltage, the winding requires less turns per phase. Less turns per phase, and if the number of turns is less, leakage reactance also becomes less, which is nothing but if you see the performance characteristics of induction motor, so which is having large diameter, correct. So the large diameter, which means the maximum output is large, which means machine has large overload capacity. So these three parameters will affect the average gap density in the average flux density in the air gap. So next we have to see the choice of ampere conductors per meter. Ampere conductors per meter. In that first parameter we have to consider is copper loss and temperature rise. A large value of AC, that is ampere turns, or specific electrical loading, you can say specific electrical loading. A large value of AC means that a greater amount of copper is employed in the machine. Larger value of AC means ampere turns will be higher. Ampere turns will be higher means that you should need more large number of copper turns. So the greater amount of copper is employed in the machine. This results in higher copper loss and large temperature rise of the embedded conductors. When there is a large amount of copper is present in the machine, which will leads to the large copper loss, correct. The result in higher copper loss and large temperature rise in the embedded conductors. So the conductors which are present, so there will be increase in the temperature takes place. Second point is the voltage. A small value of AC should be taken for high voltage machines. If the machine is high voltage machine, so you have to choose a small value of AC should be taken, because as their case the space required for insulation is large. So for small value of AC should be taken for high voltage machines, because insulation provision of insulation for high voltage machine is higher, correct. So therefore you have to choose the small value of AC. And third point is overload capacity. A large value of ampere conductors should result in large number of turns per phase. Large number of ampere conductors are present means it is having large number of turns per phase. This word means that the leakage reactance of the machine becomes high. Leakage reactance of the machine becomes high, and the diameter of circle diagram is reducing, resulting in reduced overload capacity. So if you choose large value of ampere conductors, that will result in large number of turns per phase, correct. So large number of turns per phase means which you will be having the leakage reactance of the machine becomes high. Leakage reactance of the machine becomes high, and if you see the characteristics curve of induction motor, so you will be having less diameter of the circle diagram. Circle diagram diameter will be reduces, which results in the reduced value of overload capacity. So these 3 points you have to consider for the choice of electrical loading. Hence the value of ampere conductors per meter depends upon the size of the motor, the value of stator winding. So value of AC varies between 5000 to 45,000 ampere conductors per meter for a typical induction motor. So we have to choose the value of AC between 5000 to 45,000 ampere conductors per meter. So these also, the output equation also, it is very important in the examination point of view, and choice of flux density in the induction motor. So what is the first point? Power factor, correct. So power factor will be poor, and the second point is the iron loss, and third one is the overload capacity of the induction motor. So you have to briefly explain these 3 terms. And if you choose the value of a specific electrical loading or ampere conductors per meter, so what are the parameters to be affecting parameters is copper loss and the temperature rise, correct. So there will be increase in the copper loss because of large value of AC, correct. And second one is the voltage. Small value of AC if you should be taken. If you choose large value of AC means there is a high copper loss will be taken, or insulation requirement for the winding will be higher. And third point is overload capacity, a large value of ampere conductors which will result in large number of turns per phase. So these three parameters you have to learn. So we'll continue the remaining chapters or remaining topics in the next class. Thank you.